CM Punk continues to tease a possible return to pro wrestling, posting pictures with FTR on his Instagram story. But could the former AEW World Champion actually return to the company he was suspended by after All Out? Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there's plenty of stories, debate, discussion to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling. And of course, it's Christmas Day. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. There isn't too many news stories going on today, but I still want to deliver that content that you like. I still want to give you some Christmas Day stuff to watch. So, a bit of a stocking filler. We're going to talk a bit about CM Punk. Now, I know what you're going to say, Owen. You're always talking about CM Punk. You're always talking about Punk going back to WWE or Punk in AEW. Or Punk leaving AEW. Is he released? Is he not released? Is he suspended? What's going on? Well, this is a question we haven't answered, and it's part of a kind of new style of video that we've been doing recently, whereby, look, some days there aren't really those news stories around. So I want to answer and discuss and debate some of the big questions in pro wrestling. And what I really like about these videos is that we have a great reaction, a great feedback in the comment section below. You let me know. You give me your opinions, and this is the great thing about it, is you give me your opinions. Am I right? Am I wrong? What do you think? You answer the question, you give me your thoughts, and that's part of the beauty of this channel. We've got such a great community here at Wrestle News 365. So let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section below. Will CM Punk return to AEW? Now, CM Punk hasn't been seen on AEW programming since the infamous All Out pay-per-view. Now, let's try and get this as chronologically as possible. It's really difficult to, really difficult to, but CM Punk wrestled a match against Jon Moxley in the main event of All Out. It was for the AEW World Championship. He won that match. He won the match, became a two-time AEW World Champion. Now, in the middle of that match, he did a tope suicida to the outside, and he tore his triceps. Now, we didn't know that until a couple of days afterwards, but he tore his triceps. He's out of action for 9 months. He had surgery right after. 9 months would put his return date around sort of June time next year. But that wasn't the biggest story. That's not the reason we haven't seen him since. We haven't seen him since because he was first up in the now infamous AEW post All Out media scrub, in which he lambasted several key names within AEW. He bashed Scott Colton, also known as Colt Cabana. He bashed Hangman Adam Page. He bashed the executive vice presidents of the company, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, while sitting right next to the AEW president, Tony Khan. After the press conference, the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, Hangman Page was not in the building when this happened, went to Punk's locker room, and bedlam broke out. There was a brawl between CM Punk, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Ace Steel, Larry the Dog was in the room, Ace Steel's wife was in the room. It led to someone, probably Ace Steel, biting Kenny Omega, pulling his hair, punches being thrown. Allegedly, CM Punk was throwing the first punch. The Elite brought with them the chief legal officer of AEW, Mega Parek, there as a witness, and then everyone involved was suspended. Everyone, including the people that tried to break it up, such as Brandon Cutler, Pat Buck, Michael Nakazawa, etc. They were all suspended. Now, those that weren't really involved got their suspensions lifted just a couple of weeks later. It wasn't actually that long after that. But the key figures there, they were suspended for a while, and we had this external investigation going on. An external investigation by people not involved, independent people. And eventually, the Elite, now they've returned to AEW programming. They're involved in this Best of 7 series with Death Triangle over the Trios Championships. Now, they actually won the Trios Championships at All Out, but they were the championships were vacated along with CM Punk's newly won AEW World Championship was vacated when they were suspended. So they're back on AEW television. CM Punk we haven't seen since. Now, we don't know right now what is going on with CM Punk. We know he's not on TV. We don't know if he's still suspended. Logically, you would suggest, well, he hasn't been fired. That's one thing we do know. CM Punk has not been released. CM Punk is still under contract to AEW. CM Punk is still getting paid by AEW. CM Punk is rehabbing his torn triceps. He's made a handful of public appearances since all of this, most of the time for his MMA commentary gig that he has. But that's all really we've seen of CM Punk. We have also seen a few pictures he's posted to his Instagram story. A couple of them were from his old WWE run, back when he had long black hair. And more recently, he's been posting pictures with Dax Harwood of FTR, and that's got a lot of people talking as well. So that's all we've really seen from Punk since then. But logically, you would think, well, if everyone else is no longer suspended, you had Ace Steel that's fired, you had all the producers, their suspensions were lifted, the Elite are back on television, logically it would suggest that CM Punk is not suspended either. Now, we had heard on several different points that CM Punk was actively negotiating his exit from the company with AEW. He wanted to leave the company, he was done with the company, he wanted to move on to his next project. Tony Khan was negotiating his exit from the company as well. However, the big sticking point with CM Punk and his AEW future was a non-compete clause. CM Punk didn't want a non-compete clause. AEW wanted Punk to stick to a non-compete clause, most likely similar to William Regal. Now, William Regal, his contract wasn't actually set to expire. He had an opt-out clause in February of next year. He requested to Tony Khan that they had, he used the opt-out clause in December that Tony Khan had on his contract. Tony Khan said yes under a conditional release, which was that William Regal could go back to WWE, but he couldn't be an on-screen talent until 2024, most likely when Regal's actual AEW contract expired. So that's basically what Tony Khan does on a case-by-case basis when people do exit the company, whereby if you leave your contract early, you can go, but you can't go to WWE, basically. And that's essentially what he's saying to CM Punk at this point. You can leave, but at the same time, I don't want you to be wrestling for any pro wrestling company. And CM Punk is saying, no, I want to be able to wrestle for a pro wrestling company, which implies that he sees his pro wrestling career as not over. So that's the latest there. Now, I said at the time that if anything involved in all of this, the best thing for CM Punk was that he got injured. The best thing for CM Punk was that he underwent surgery on his triceps and he was out of action for 9 months, because as we've seen this year, and there have been so many, just so many ginormous stories in pro wrestling this year, the all out, the brawl out, whatever you want to call it, being one of them. So much has happened this year that it's evidence that so much can happen in 12 months or 9 months for that matter. So by the time he's ready to come back in June next year, or he's ready to wrestle again, in June next year, not to say a lot of that bad blood and the bad sentiment between him and the Elites, and between him and a lot of the AEW locker room, Mr. Fed, not to say that'll be completely gone, but time truly does heal all wounds. Now, one of the big reports and stories coming out of the fallout of Brawlout was that the majority, and I stress the words majority there because it's not the entirety of the AEW locker room, but the majority of the locker room had basically said to Tony Khan, if CM Punk comes back, 1, he's not welcome in this locker room, and 2, we refuse to work with him. We do not want to work with CM Punk, and if he comes back, we'll walk out, essentially. Now, that felt like the final nail in the CM Punk coffin in AEW. And to be honest, I'm sure that he could care less about that. If that speeds up his exit from the company, he'd be more than happy with that. But again, a lot can change in that time. And you look at 2023 being a massive year for AEW, because 2023 is the year that they're going to be negotiating with Warner Bros. Discovery over a new television contract. Now, the chances are that AEW is going to get a new TV deal. Warner Bros. Discovery is very happy with AEW. In terms of producing other programming, it's actually relatively cost-effective in comparison to scripted shows. It does very well. As I've said a million times before, there are 3 things nowadays that draw on cable television. It's live sport, it's cable news, and it's pro wrestling. Despite what you want to say about AEW programming, and Rampage is a problem, but Dynamite still does very well in the ratings. This past week, they were number 3 in cable originals. Yes, they've dipped below 1 million viewers, but they tend to this time of the year anyway. The point is that Warner Bros. Discovery might look at it and say, look, CM Punk, when he was on Dynamite, did very well for us. And he helped get the show over 1 million viewers. And if CM Punk's not with the company, not to say they won't get a new television deal, because I think they probably will, but it would make AEW's hand a lot stronger. And also, what we have seen, not so much in the last few weeks, but certainly in the first couple of matches in the Best of 7 series involving the Elite, they started to get really, really, really heavy-handed with some CM Punk references. You have to remember, when the Elite and CM Punk were suspended, they were persona non gratas, all of them. You were not allowed to reference them, you were not allowed to say their name, you were not allowed to even hint to them on AEW programming because of possible legal ramifications. When they were talking about Ring of Honor and the best Ring of Honor champions of all time, one of the names most synonymous with Ring of Honor, CM Punk, they didn't even reference him. They didn't talk about him. He was removed from the Dynamite intro. Since the Elite have come back, well, a little couple of Punk references here and there. They've name dropped him a couple of times. And again, the Elite, they started doing his moves and openly mocking him and trolling him on AEW Dynamite in one of the matches when they were in Chicago on Thanksgiving Eve edition of Dynamite. They were doing the go to sleep. They were doing, Matt Jackson was mocking, doing CM Punk botching the buckshot lariat during his match against Hangman Adam Page at Double or Nothing. And you had Kenny Omega even biting Pac, referencing the brawl that happened after All Out. And they also had, on an episode of Being the Elite, they decided not to censor the FC and Punk chants that were at Full Gear and all that kind of stuff. And it led to even someone like me, who is not a big sort of, everything's a work, everything's a work. Because I do think a lot of things in pro wrestling are actually a shoot. Not what happens in the ring, but the backstage stuff. I think people are so focused on everything's a work, everything, you're always being worked. And I really do believe this was a situation where it was a shoot to start off with. But some of the Punk references then started and have started to become so heavy-handed that, you almost start to say, well, again, a lot can change in 9 months. And come June next year, maybe those on the AEW roster will have cooled down, taken a back seat and said, you know what? There's a lot of money to be made here. If AEW gets this right, if Tony Khan can pull this off and somehow work out a way where CM Punk and the Elite can work together, it'd probably be the biggest storyline in AEW history. Nothing in AEW has got more attention than the brawl incident that happened after All Out. And even leading up to that, the backstage drama involving CM Punk and Hangman Page and Colt Cabana. And I'm not going to suggest that Colt Cabana and CM Punk are going to work together, because I don't think that's ever going to happen. And CM Punk's comments against Scott Colton after All Out were very much real, and their problems are very much real. But at the same time, Ring of Honor television is going to be up and running next year, is whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's not a TV deal, it's going to be on Honor Club, but that Ring of Honor is going to be more active next year than it has been now, and the separation between AEW and ROH is going to be far bigger now. So Scott Colton's not really going to be an issue for AEW anymore, because he's going to be involved in Ring of Honor. So my point being is that if CM Punk and the Elite can put their issues aside, it would be the biggest storyline in AEW history, and probably the biggest drawing angle in AEW history. And what WWE have done, and any good pro wrestling promoter has done in the past, whereby if there's a shoot issue, it always eventually turns into a storyline, because people, as pro wrestling fans, we want to believe. You want to have suspension of disbelief. The biggest issue for me as a wrestling fan is when I'm watching something and I go, that's BS. I want to believe. I think everyone that buys a ticket, or everyone that wants the TV show, they want to go in on the ride. They want to have suspension of disbelief. We know what we're watching isn't real. We know what we're watching is a work. And we know that those guys, the majority of the time, they don't really hate each other. And it is scripted and choreographed to a T. But we want to believe. That's why when you have real life issues, when they're brought into storyline, that's the best, because you can believe. The jump from fiction to reality isn't that far. So even if they don't like each other still, if Tony Khan is a promoter worth his salt, he'd get CM Punk back. And he'd say to the locker room, you know what? If you've got a problem with it, speak to me. This is a business at the end of the day. And I understand the locker room in AEW has become very toxic this year, and it's been a really bad year for AEW in terms of backstage politics and infighting and black eyes. But I think the narrative that's been put out there about CM Punk, that nobody likes him and he's hated by the entirety of the locker room, I just don't believe that's true, because you've got people like Dax Harwood that says, no, I really like CM Punk. And you've got people like Ricky Starks who've done interviews then, I really liked CM Punk and I like speaking to him, and other people within the company have said the same thing. So this narrative that Punk was this just pariah backstage, I don't believe is true. What I think is the most real, the closer to reality option is that clearly, the Elite and the Young Bucks, they've got their people and people like them, and then CM Punk's got a different philosophy and mentality to them, and you get that. But that's a pro wrestling company at the end of the day. You've got different people. You can't have everyone, sucking up to EVPs. The biggest problem that Tony Khan did is give those people executive vice president titles. And he only did it to make them sign with him in the first place, because they were going to go to WWE at that period of time when he was trying to launch the company. So to answer the question, do I think CM Punk will return to AEW? I think it's more likely that he returns to AEW programming than he goes to WWE next year. I truly believe that. I know there are rumors about him wanting possibly to go back to WWE and main eventing WrestleMania and facing Stone Cold Steve Austin or whatever, and it would be a big get for WWE, and I don't think it's impossible, and I really think every single option's on the table for CM Punk next year, but I almost think the most likely one is that he would return to AEW, and that Tony Khan would figure things out. And again, some of the references have become so heavy-handed over the last few weeks and months that I've started to go, well, maybe there is something there. Maybe there is something there. And the way that I see it is that the Elite win the Trios Championships against Death Triangle. They then move on to face the House of Black for a couple of months. That possibly leads into sort of Revolution or Double or Nothing. And around that period of time, CM Punk, then he'd be able to come back. And who's to say CM Punk doesn't team up with the same people he's been posting pictures with FTR? Suddenly then you've got CM Punk, FTR versus the Elite. And FTR got their problem with the Young Bucks as well. That's money right there. And in a year where they've got to draw money, in a year where they've got to get, you know, the product back to being hot once again, in a year that they've got to prove to Warner Bros. Discovery, not only do you want to renew us, you want to pay us more money, getting CM Punk back in and putting that story on television to draw fans, suddenly they wouldn't have an issue selling tickets once again. So I think it's possible. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Will CM Punk return to AEW? Will it happen in 2023, or have we seen CM Punk wrestle for the last time inside of an AEW ring? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.